Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I do want to introduce the panel that you have here. James Harris, the original founder of RaceJoy, well, co-founder, and Chris McDonald, who a lot of you know that helps everybody, race directors and timers alike. And then Matt Avery, most everybody knows Matt Avery. He's our product manager and really responsible for a lot of the direction that we have for our race day products, and then myself, Shelly Harris. So we're gonna go ahead and close off our cameras to save the bandwidth so we can also focus in on the presentation that we're doing, okay? Okay, great. Oops, mine came back on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off, and then I'll hand it over to Matt to give an overview of the challenge events or this challenge platform. So this is our agenda today, and we do have a lot of information to cover, as I mentioned. So feel free to get with us after the fact. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to type in your questions on the control panel. One of us will help you, or Chris will help you, or Michael is also on the line as well. So we have a lot of people here to answer your questions. So don't hesitate to type in questions. We're happy to answer that. But our agenda today is to really kind of do a brief overview of the challenge platform with RunSignup and how it relates to RaceJoy, and what are the different options, and then RaceJoy for challenge events. Why would you use that, and what are the features that are important to challenge events? And then the custom options that you can take advantage of in RaceJoy and how you can do that on the back end. And then the participant experience, what does that look like? And then at the end, we'll cover the setup, the how-to. And the reason why we put this at the end is because this will be predominantly taken care of by your certified timers. And so we invite our certified timers to stay to the end. Race directors, you're welcome to join us for that part. We are going to cover the challenge setup part, but we'll also be covering the RaceJoy setup part. But most of that is covered by your timers. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt Avery to give you an overview of the challenge platform.
Thanks so much, Shelly. Let's see if I can take this over.
I'll try to change.
All right.
Yeah.
Looks like I'm good.
Good.
All right, so thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, was it present? There it is. So I'm super excited to talk with you all today about RaceJoy for challenges. This has been a really, it's a long time coming for this. We put a lot of effort and work into opening up our challenge platform on RunSignup to allow RaceJoy to be integrated with it. So for this session, I'm just going to give you guys a brief overview of what RunSignup virtual challenge platform is and how you might want to use it for your events and how you might want to structure your events to best utilize our services. So let's take a look. So, what is a challenge? How are they different from virtual races, and what are the main types? So the big thing about challenges is that they are a special type of virtual event that gives participants the ability to log multiple activities over time. And so this is in opposition to a virtual race. Virtual race is something like everyone's going to go run a 5K. It's a one-time event. They may do it all over the place at different times, but everyone's just running a 5K. On the other hand, a challenge is where everybody in the event is going to be logging, activities over the course of weeks, months, however long you want, and all of their activity data gets accumulated over time, and then it's up to you as either a certified timer or as a race director to decide how to organize that data and how to display it and how to let people log different types of things. So we put together a really flexible and in-depth system to let you do this. And so what I'm going to do next is give you guys a little overview of the main types of challenges that we see people setting up and our best recommendations for those types of challenges, specifically in regards to how it would work well with RaceJoy integration. So let's talk about challenge types. So before you decide to get started setting up a challenge, it's important to spend some time to think about how you want it to work. We find that there are two main types of challenges that are being set up these days. We have what I call fixed distance challenges and what I call open-ended challenges. So each of these options has unique setup requirements. It's good to know what you want to accomplish before you start setting them up, because it does have implications. You want to make sure you get it all right from the get-go. You want to make sure that your participants understand what they're signing up for and what their expectations for the event that you're putting on are. So it's good to have a good understanding of it, to be able to communicate with your participants well what's happening. So let's break that down. There are two main types, open-ended and fixed distance. So again, remember, a challenge is an accumulation of multiple activities over the course of days, weeks, months, whatever. So an open-ended type of challenge would be something where there is no defined end goal for all participants. What that means is there's no set like milestone where everybody's trying to reach 1,000 miles, and then once they reach there, they're done. Open-ended is just like if you had a challenge that's just to try and run as many miles as you can over the summer, or something different. You could do other sorts of things, which I'll talk about later. But the basic example of the open-ended challenge is see who can accumulate the most amount of mileage or the most amount of time over this set period of time. Now, the other type of challenge that we find is really popular is a fixed distance type of challenge. This is an event where there is a defined end goal for all participants. So a good example of this is an event where the goal is to run the length of a state, for example. You add up all the distance of all their runs, and participants are ranked based on who reaches that end goal first. So it's a little bit different because participants are really going to be ranked not by who's done the most, but by who got to a point first. So these are different in terms of what you want to set up on the back end. So when you're thinking about, starting up a challenge and setting it up for your registration, you should figure out beforehand what type of challenge you really want to do. In either case, open-ended or fixed distance, you can always use different parameters for the challenge. For instance, instead of trying to create or to achieve an end goal of running the length of New Jersey, it may be to accumulate the height of Mount Everest in total elevation gain. And we support that kind of thing. We allow you to plug in different metrics and to sort things on different parameters, like elevation gain is one of them. Or instead of running as many miles as you can, it could just be to try to accumulate the most minutes. So that's another popular one that we find. It's just like you want to see who can do the most amount of activity. In addition, you can also set up multiple activity types, which allow participants to log things like bike rides, walks, and more. And you have options to track it separately to show summaries of how many, cycling miles they did or walk miles they did. What was the total time for all of their walks and so on. And you can get really into the nitty-gritty with all this stuff. But it all circles back to this idea of you need two main types of challenges to determine the setup that you want to do. Is there an end goal in mind, or is it open-ended? So let's talk a little bit about challenge result sorting. What are your options with RunSignup challenge? Well, you can do it in all sorts of different ways. And the best recommendation depends on the type of challenge that you're setting up. Do you want to sort participants based on who's done the greatest distance? Or how about who's done the most elevation gain? What about, do I want to show the person with the lowest time in first, the fastest pace in first, the first to reach some milestone or some mileage goal? Here's our recommendation. For events that do not have a defined end goal, we think that you should use one of the options that sort results based on the greatest amount of something. For instance, these are great options for an open-ended challenge. Greatest distance accomplished, the most elevation gained, the greatest time, or the fastest pace. I think those are the most appropriate for an open-ended type of challenge. Now, if you're doing a fixed distance challenge, most events want to see who reached this milestone at the first or the earliest amount of time. So in RunSignup, we have these things called milestones, which you can say are at mile 10, 50, 100, or whatever. And participants will be able to unlock milestones as they achieve more activities. and you can select to sort on a specific milestone so that you may want to have your end goal be 1,000 miles. You can create a milestone at 1,000 miles and then say the first person to reach that milestone is going to be in first place. What's really great about this is it will always sort results with a first person to reach that defined distance. Now, why is that great? It's because when people continue to log miles, they can continue to do so, but they won't jump ahead of that person who actually reached that point first. So I like to describe these as the fixed distance challenge is a little bit more competitive. It's a little bit more like we want to make sure that these people who are in first place overall, they really got there first. It's not just who did the most amount of distance. It's really about who got there first. So those are the main types of result sorting options for challenges. And so with that, I think one more slide here. So how is all this set up? Yeah, before we get too deep into the specifics of how to do all this in the challenge software, let's take a few minutes to learn about RaceJoy and how you can enable it for your challenge events. So RaceJoy is now able to let users log their activities and push it over to our challenge software in RunSignup. So later on in the session, I'm going to be showing you the backend setup for a few of these examples that I went over now. So I'm going to go in more detail later. Stay tuned if you're interested in that. For the time being, I'm going to pass it back to Shelly Harris to go through a deep dive on RaceJoy Challenge.
Great. Okay, let me get back to me. Great, thank you, Matt. Okay, so as Matt said, we are super excited. There's been a lot of development that went behind supporting the challenge events and doing the integration between RaceJoy's mobile app and RunSignup's challenge platform. So I know there's a few of you on here that have been anxiously awaiting this. So we're glad just as much as you are that we have it out. So why do you want to use RaceJoy for a challenge event? I mean, and the main reason is that you're going to extend the overall event experience, and you'll be able to offer this kind of virtual engagement with participants, that they have this other engagement with their friends and family and so forth. And it's a way to connect with them while they're doing the challenge, while they're actually performing it, where RunSignup's challenge platform actually has some really great tools and visuals for participants that they can view after the fact, but also for their spectators and so forth along the way. But RaceJoy allows you to extend it to be while they're doing it. So we're going to cover those features. So as we've been saying, it integrates with RunSignup's challenge platform. RaceJoy is an add-on service to that. It's an extra service on top of the platform. It is for distance-based events, and what we mean by that is that the participant must travel a geographic distance. It cannot be used for stationary equipment, treadmills, or non-distance challenges. Otherwise, because the tracking is all based on GPS, right? That they're traveling a distance. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of where you're going to plug in RaceJoy for your challenge events. So many of you know about RaceJoy, and that we started with the traditional side of things, right? RaceJoy, and it continues to support those traditional on-site defined course paths. And then when COVID hit, we opened it up that we had this virtual hybrid type of event where it's still on site, it's a defined course, but you have a flexible start and finish, right? It's maybe over a course of a week or what have you. And then we extended it to be now offering or supporting virtual races anywhere, so that they can complete a set distance from any location. And then now we also support the challenge events with this, where people can complete a distance and over multiple segments. So it's more the activity based. So that's what we mean by the challenge, is that it's a more of a cumulative type of approach to completing their distance. So you can have an event that has all three of these, and we're definitely seeing races creating different options for people given the current environment and extending more flexibility. The challenge events are definitely key in that you're really able to connect with your participants over a longer period of time if you have an extended period of time. And it also is a great way to add on to a theme. If it's, from a pie eating to what have you, if you have a themed event, you can get really creative with adding on a challenge component. Now, obviously, you can't do the pie eating tracking on RaceJoy, but we are seeing that the people a lot of race directors are offering different components, and I wanted to communicate that you can do all three of these in RaceJoy for a single event. Or independently. So most of you know, and if you don't know, RaceJoy is available through certified providers, and these are your timers. Now they don't have to time your event to offer RaceJoy, because we get a lot of confusion about that, but they have been trained in the product. They will do the setup, they will do the support for you, they will answer your questions, and they will be your point of contact. Likewise, they can help you on the challenge setup side of things and your results and so forth, your virtual results. Some of that can get a little complicated, so it's definitely nice to have a timer guide you on that setup part of things. And you can check with your timer to see if they're certified, and if they're not, just get with your account manager and we'll give you a list of our preferred certified providers. So for the participants and spectators, specifically for challenge events, the main feature with RaceJoy is that they get to take advantage of is live tracking of their phone. So their friends and family could track their position, their phone's position as they complete their challenge. They can also send them cheers using our cheer feature. We have campy cheers and music clips and so forth, and they can also type in messages that are played in audio format. The participant will also receive audio progress alerts at every mile with their pace and their distance that they have achieved for that segment. And you can also create an audio experience for them to experience as they're completing their challenge. And we're going to talk about that more later. So that's a nice way, though, to create a custom experience for your event. And then RaceJoy will automatically submit their progress and their results to RunSignup's challenge platform, and then all of that results data will be tallied there. So definitely this is a way for you to virtually engage with your participants and have your spectators be able to engage with them. So the data points that are actually transmitted, these are all the data points. It's the date, the distance that they've completed, their finish time, their pace, and elevation gain. So just keep in mind that these are the data points that are being transmitted from RaceJoy, because then you can create milestone goals based on this and reward badges and so forth, so that you can have different things along the way for the challenge to help motivate people and keep them engaged. So again, these are the kind of the key features for the participant and for the spectator. And really, one of the reasons why a participant would want to use it and would actually differentiate your challenge event over something else is that official kind of event experience. It is an official experience that the event is providing, and doing different custom components makes it that much more official, and we'll talk about that. So I did want to invite you, if you haven't used the RaceJoy Rocks demo product yet, definitely take advantage of this. This will give you the true understanding of what the participant experiences. We now have a challenge option loaded in. We previously just had the Race Anywhere 5K opportunity to try out RaceJoy, but now you can try out the challenge using a walk, run, or bike. So it's a nice way to get a feel for things. And then we give a verbal overview of RaceJoy's key features. So it's a good way to get an understanding, a true understanding of RaceJoy. You do need to register. You just go to RunSignup's site and search for RaceJoy Rocks to get your bib number. So you'll want to register to get your bib number to have that progress data automatically submitted. And then obviously you need to download the app. So for you, the race organizers, behind the scenes, what are things that you can do to really take advantage of RaceJoy and make this more kind of that custom official race experience that I mentioned? So we're going to talk about these pretty quickly, and then we'll show you on the back end how you can take advantage of yourselves, how to manage those. So the custom branding and content, there's a number of ways that you can do that. And obviously you want to make sure your logo's right and it's loaded in. We automatically pull from whatever logo that you have loaded in for on RunSignup's platform. And then this is showing you on the screen Boilermaker's use of a banner ad and then their logo. So you can add a banner ad, and we do recommend that if you add custom banner ads, that your first banner ad be branded for the event. So you want it to, your challenge or your race. That's a nice way to have that kind of that main screen. Your main race screen is nicely branded that way. And then each of those banner ads are linkable. So you can have whatever kind of banner ads that you want to communicate, different races that you're hosting, to kind of cross promote. You can have sponsors, you can do whatever you want with that. There's an event info page that you can have custom content. There's schedule. So this is key. If you're doing things like, say you're having something on Facebook, you're doing a Facebook Live award ceremony, that's a great way to make sure people are aware of that and promote that. And again, you could do a banner ad about that too and link to a page on it. So definitely if you are doing awards and things like that, or if you want to maybe list the last day that they can do the challenge in the schedule, the FAQ, any questions that you're getting asked, just go ahead and load those in, and then people will help alleviate those questions coming to you. And for those defined courses, you can do the course map customization. And then the official race news alerts, we'll cover that briefly here. So you can definitely, these are all, just think of these as like content and logos and links to things. They're all ways that you can take advantage of the app to have basically your own mobile app for your event. So the sponsor opportunities, this is definitely something that a lot of people are interested in. And most people will focus in on the audio experience and what we call geo cheers. And now we can call them challenge cheers, right? So I do want to communicate with that though, that, that we don't allow straight advertising or commercials. But more importantly, there's all these other moments too that you can take advantage of to showcase your sponsors. And that's with those linkable banner ads that I mentioned, the progress alert recognition, which I'll show you what that looks like, logo placements, and all those custom content sections. You can drop in logos everywhere and just say, this is being provided by this sponsor or what have you, whatever message you want to go with that logo. And then the user social media posts that we have in the app that people can post, you can customize that. And we're going to show you on the back end, super easy tool that you can self-manage to customize all of this. So this is what some of the one in the middle is kind of fuzzy, but this is showing you over to the left, the progress alert. So as people are crossing those milestones or completing their mile points, they will get, those that are tracking them will get this alert message pop up on their screen. So that's what the spectators will see. And that is definitely a sponsor promotion moment. And, thousands of these will go out for a given event. And it's definitely a valuable feature that you can offer to your sponsors. Now, the participant, they don't hear the sponsor component of that. They just hear that they, their pace and so forth, just because we don't want to frustrate the participant. But they will be able to go and see all their splits, and they have a history of their splits, and in that history, that's where those sponsor moments will show up, and that's what's showing on that next screen. What's showing up kind of fuzzy here is on Twitter, people can post their progress. So they can post, the entire, their mile points and so forth. So that's definitely a great opportunity to showcase a sponsor. Facebook doesn't allow us to do that anymore. So it's only with Twitter that they're able to do that. So, and then for the other kind of sponsor examples, again, dropping in those logos in the custom content areas and news alerts and things, the banner ads. We also have, there's a banner ad on the main race screen, and then there's a banner ad on the results screen. So you have two banner ad moments within your race or within your event in RaceJoy. So think of those things. Now, people ask, how many banner ads can I have? You can have how many you want, but it really, they lose their effectiveness after about the top 3. So, think of your sponsors, maybe having one that's really important to showcase on your banner ad, and then maybe drop in their logos in different places for the others. And then this is just showing there's another moment where people can share within the app that they're using RaceJoy on their Facebook and their Twitter walls, and they use this quite a lot. And this is where you can showcase your sponsors, and you can easily adjust this to showcase a sponsor with that. So it's a nice impression moment for them. And then for the communication side of things, we have an official news alert system that you can send out. You can schedule news alerts to go out, or if you have something that comes up that you want to communicate, you can send that on the fly. This can be content, links, and graphics, logos, what have you. So, this is a nice way to, maybe you want to remind people that it's the last day of the challenge, or that you have a new challenge coming up. Or maybe you want to announce the winner of the challenge. Just be careful not to overuse these, because then people turn off their notifications. So just be selective and choose those things that are most important, and kind of that you think that everybody's going to want to know, because it's everybody that goes into the app will receive these. So it will be your spectators and your participants. Then you have those banner ads. So think of those as, that's my news. That's a way to get out some important news. Then you also have direct audio messages. So if you see people actively using RaceJoy, we have a monitoring dashboard that you can look at. And if you see people out there using RaceJoy, then that's a great way to engage with them and give them, a shout out and say it's from the race director, and then they'll be so excited that someone saw them out there and that you're engaging with them. So, those are all great ways to have that added kind of touch point moments and communicate things that are important. So for the audio messaging, I'm just going to touch on this real quick, and then we'll show you how to do this, because it seems to be a very much something that people are very interested in. So this is, use it to think about adding to their participants' experience. Tell them they're looking good. I think that's so funny when these apps will say you're looking good, and it's like, yes, I am. And also maybe encourage an activity that's part of the challenge, like, don't forget to take your photo today and post it to our Facebook wall. So those types of audio things that you can program to play as they hit distance points. So these will be based on distant points, and James will talk through that and show you how to do that. And definitely, if you have a theme of the event, this is a way to really help support that theme. And if you do a custom audio file, they cannot be longer than 30 seconds. So we just want to make that clear, because we do have some really nice professional recordings in RaceJoy, but you want to make sure it doesn't go over the 30 seconds. But 10 to 20 seconds is really more ideal. Again, no straight advertising or commercials, and we really want it to be more about the participant's experience to avoid that user frustration. And please refrain from excessive use, just because most people are using music for their tempo, to motivate their tempo and to keep on target. So just keep that in mind from their perspective. They're just kind of nice sprinkles of these is good. And James will talk about this, but you can pre-record a file. You can create your own MP3 format. We have sound files that we've loaded in that you can choose from, or you can do text to speech, where you just type in the message, or you can do a combination of those sound files with that text to speech. So we have a cheer builder per se that you can take advantage of. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to let me bring it over to James, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Shelly. Yeah, I think the key word today is really all about engagement. And what's really important with challenge is, again, finding creative ways to stay engaged and make it a little bit different than just like going out and using your training app and just doing your mileage and then looking at the results later. So we're really going to kind of focus on that today in terms of engagement. In terms of the customization, Shelly was kind of going over that, but we just want to show you again, all this is available to you on your dashboard under RaceJoy, under custom options. And this is really where you as race directors and certified partners can help your events customize their experience. So the event info area, as Shelly said, is something that you can have it automatically populated from registration, or you can just really do whatever you need to do in here. And it's a WYSIWYG editor, real easy to kind of manage the content that you have there. Moving on down, we have the banner ads. Again, just real easy to pop in ads with links and everything. And as Shelly said, it's both for the homepage and the results area. So it's two different areas that you want to kind of manage that. Putting schedule is a nice thing to do, especially as you have challenge. You might want to have different things, milestones that happen as you go. And it'll be important there that you think about how you would use this area for challenge and add in some things here. I think I'll get to the alerts in a second. So we've kind of expanded this area for customization of the social sharing and alerts, and we've expanded this a little bit for you. This has been rolled out recently. So this is when people are emailing from within the app and saying, hey, I'm doing this challenge, and it's the viral aspect. And so they have a lot of opportunities, not only when they're setting up their profile, but even later in the app to say, I'm going to share this with friends and family. And so you can really customize that sharing experience, both for Facebook sharing, email sharing, and also social Twitter sharing. And so this is all customizable. And again, just come in here, click on the elements, and go ahead and change how you want that to go out and what information that you want to go out. And then the top part here is when they are actually moving. So these are your timing notifications, and as Shelly covered, the Twitter alerts customization. So if someone chooses to have their milestones being published on Twitter as they go, this is where you would customize that information. I find actually we do a lot of monitoring. The area of news alerts is actually somewhat underutilized right now under COVID, and that's kind of surprising. This is definitely a great area to think about how to engage with your virtual participants because you don't have them on site. So again, thinking about timely, informative, and maybe useful things that you could push out. So these are the push notifications that go to the app. And so this is a really good use, I think, in challenge. You have this kind of longer duration event. You have things that are happening over time. This is a good use of news alert system to let people know that you're monitoring and that you're engaged with them, and sending them tidbits on a kind of daily or weekly basis would be pretty important, I think, for challenge. And so again, you have this ability to do that with the news alert system. So something you definitely want to think about in terms of how you do that. And again, as Shelly covered, real easy to drop in logos and so forth on these news alerts and make it, provide some sponsor value. So we invite you to really look at all the customization options, news alerts, again, just kind of engaging and providing kind of that next level of experience. So one of the key things that we really want to kind of cover as we go before we look at the participant experience in RaceJoy is this GeoCheer. And at this time, this is the highly utilized area of our system under COVID. We're seeing just an immense amount of activity in this area, a lot of good, just really good content being put together. Again, using those 20-second moments and really kind of giving an engaged experience for people as they go. So we're getting some good feedback about that. We're seeing a lot of partners really understand the right way to use this. And so we've given some, kind of verbiage here and all. But at the end of the day, it really is about how you program that. And so it's all done on your dashboard. So whether or not you're a race director or a timer, this is all available to you on your dashboard, and it'll be under the course. And so we're going to just look at, we've set up a couple challenges here today. And again, as Shelly said, we invite everybody to use the RaceJoy Rocks event. This is your first opportunity to experience a challenge event. It's all free, and you can just go and register and put it on your phone and use RaceJoy Rocks as a challenge event over the next year. We've set up two different types of challenge. As Avery covered at the beginning, we've done more of like a milestone that we're trying to achieve a distance, and that's our Born to Run challenge. That's a challenge traveling from Atlantic City up to Asbury in honor of Bruce Springsteen. And it's more of like, you know, kind of a New Jersey-based theme that we're doing there. And we'll look at that in a second. The other one is the Rockstar Challenge. You're invited to do that. And that's more of like, you know, it's all about completing how many activities can I complete. And I'm trying to gain badges. And the badges we'll be looking at are like, you know, I got my 10-miler badge, I got my 25-miler badge, I got my 50-miler badge, I got my 100-miler badge, and all the way up to my 250-miler badge. And so you're kind of, you know, it's all about repeated kind of use, and I'm logging my mileage, and I'm kind of getting badges as I go. And so that's a really good example of, you know, that type of challenge. So both are available. And so in terms of setting up that engagement and trying to make it theme-based, we've given you an example here today in our webinar. So we're going to look at the Born to Run challenge. So again, everything in RaceJoy is based on milestones, and we're going to be looking at the setup on the virtual activities and challenge in a minute. But in terms of the one part about RaceJoy is all about these kind of incremental milestones that you complete. The default is every mile. For bike events, it's every 5 miles. But you can drop in, you know, other milestones. So if you wanted to do a half-mile or some smaller increment, if your challenge is more like a mile every day type challenge, you could just set up some smaller increments. It's totally customizable what you want those kind of incremental moments to be. And then we can kind of layer in these audio experiences. And as Shelley said, you can combine your custom audio and have all kinds of really cool MP3s that you load in. And you can combine it with a text-to-speech. You can combine those two, or you can combine something pre-recorded from our archive library. We have a lot of sound effects out here, and add a sound effect with a message, and that's a really creative way to kind of build a moment experience. So it's very customizable in terms of what you can do, and it's all based upon kind of different milestones along the travel of that particular activity that they're doing. So what does this look like from a participant's perspective? And, you know, how does it, you know, what does the participant see? And let's just take a look at that now in terms of these two challenges. So again, we invite you to come in. You'll register for RaceJoy Rocks and you get a bib and you'll be able to do the challenge. You can choose from one of those two challenges. So from their perspective, everything's going to be kind of the same, but there's some subtle differences. And so the subtle differences are, you know, I'm really kind of choosing to do a challenge activity. And when you do that, we have this new thing called an activity selector. So here's our Rockstar Challenge. And for the Rockstar Challenge, we did all 3 types of activities: run, walk, and even bike ride for that one, if you want to just do a Rockstar Challenge and do ride activities. All this will be explained in a few minutes by Avery as we start setting up. It's key to understand that RaceJoy is looking at that platform, and we're reading all that platform, and then we're going to submit all the data based on that platform. So if we come back to, let's do the Born to Run challenge and kind of see what that would look like from a, you know, participants expect, you know, what they would experience for just doing an activity. So we're going to kick off a new activity. So now they're kind of, they got started this activity, and it's kind of a key point to say here is that really from an engagement perspective, change it up. So you're doing a challenge. This is a really great opportunity to kind of manage your audio messages for those different milestones. And, you know, it's something you might want to change on a weekly basis, keep it fresh, change it up, change what's going on during the challenge. Maybe this week you're focused on this part of the challenge. And then maybe other times you're focused on a different part of the challenge.
Split pace 49 seconds.
So we're moving through California here, incrementally kind of seeing what's going to happen. And then at this point, I want to go ahead and just say I'm done with this activity, and I get presented this activity submission screen. Everything in terms of RaceJoy that you're seeing is based on, and that was milestone one alert. A good one for this week as we go into the election. So anyways, you know, really we get to this activity submission screen, and, you know, really everything you've seen is based upon how you set up your activity. So if you've allowed for elevation gain, if you've allowed for time entry, all of this stuff will be completely happening and configurable. So things will show and hide based upon how you set up your challenge. In this area, we're not seeing any elevation because I'm using a simulator. I will mention that RaceJoy did take us a little bit longer to come out with our challenge because we went the extra mile, as we always do with our technology. We're not using elevation based on GPS. We're using elevation based on pressure. We're using an actual altimeter algorithm that's built into the phone, and it's a very accurate elevation. We've actually measured our elevation against the national geotables, which at a very deep level, and we're getting really good results. And so we're really excited about our elevation feature, and hope that our users will really like that. So again, we just kind of submit that result, and again, it'll give you some kind of unreasonable expectations because I had that run thing. So from a participant's perspective, it really is easy to kind of use RaceJoy, have those submissions submitted to the platform, and most importantly, it's engagement, right? So now my wife is at home, I'm out there doing my challenge activity. She gets alerts, maybe she wants to see what's going on, send me a cheer. So not only do I have friends and family engage with me as I'm completing my activities, but then also from your perspective, you're engaged with them, you're able to see what's happening, monitor them, and even, as Shelley said, maybe send some messages, if you see somebody out there doing something. So again, it's really kind of bringing a mobile experience into your challenge platform and providing for that engagement overall for everybody. Shelley, was there anything else I needed to cover before we switch back?
No, I think we need to go to the next stage. Thank you, James. Okay, great. So we've covered things pretty quickly. Everybody will get a recording of things, but so what do you need to do? First, you need to set up your challenge event on RunSignup's platform. And you can work with your RunSignup account manager or your timer to do that if you have questions. There's a lot of helpful tools out there as well. But then for RaceJoy, you need to get with your RaceJoy certified provider. And again, if you don't have one, just get with your account manager and we'll get you with someone. But check with your traditional timer and see if they're certified, because most are by now. And then once it gets set up, you'll want to customize your experience. Now, you don't have to. You could just do the default experience. That's absolutely fine. And then you'll want to promote RaceJoy's availability and make sure people know that you have this added service for your challenge, and communicate that there's an interactive experience that they can have their progress automatically submitted on whenever they use it, and also that people can track and send them cheers and so forth. I did want to communicate some things that have been kind of coming up that to share that you probably should communicate with your participants and think about it a little bit more, just because this is all new space, right? Some of the things that we've been seeing is that participants aren't sure about their bib numbers. So you want to make sure that you maybe issue those out a couple of times, or communicate where they can get their bib numbers. They can do it from the participant lookup, that you sent them an email. Make sure that a bib assignment is on, and that it's automatically being emailed to your registrants, because we do get a lot of questions about where's my bib number, and they need that for those result submissions. And also make sure that to communicate that they can manually enter in their progress as well on your computer. I mean, on your website. So because we're getting a lot of questions about that maybe something happened, their battery died or something with their phone, or they didn't want to use RaceJoy because for whatever reason, not everybody's going to use it, but just letting them know that they have a manual entry option is good. And then over communicate. If you end up offering, you have like maybe an on-site experience, and also you're offering virtual, and you're offering this challenge, make sure you communicate that they need to select the course that they're doing and complete the one that they registered for. So just like this with those traditional events, when you have someone switch courses, how that creates all this havoc. It's the same thing. I mean, if they register for something, they do a different one, which we see with RaceJoy. Well, their bib number is tied to the registration. So then they'll say the results aren't working, and then it's all the support and everything for your timers. So the more communication that you can do on these, and as we all know, people don't read everything. So, but the more you can do with that, the better. So if you have questions about RaceJoy, make sure to get with your certified timer. If you have questions about the challenge setup, then get with your account manager or your race timer, whoever you're working with. And you can also send in messages to RunSignup support at info@runsignup.com. So with that, and obviously wanted to, a last pitch of try out RaceJoy Rocks. But with that, we're going to go into the setup. So I invite all the timers to stay in on the call. The race directors, you're welcome to join us. If not, I hope that you found this to be valuable and that you're excited about using RaceJoy. And we'll take it from here. So I'm going to have Matt go over the setup.
Before we let the race directors go, again, with the RaceJoy Rocks, as Shelly just covered, all the results are out there. They're being submitted from RaceJoy. So I invite you to kind of check out the platform and see how this works in terms of all those activities being logged. And you can see all that kind of data coming in from RaceJoy. And then if it's set up to be a map-based one, then this is a nice visual that they get. So the platform's there in terms of the results. All we're doing from RaceJoy is pushing that data there. And then it's all up to the platform and how the platform's rendering, which Avery's going to cover now.
All right, thanks so much, James and Shelly, for that great overview. Let's see here. Believe I am showing my screen. Yep. So let's take a look at the back end for a challenge. So this is the race dashboard for the RaceJoy Rocks event that we have set up for you guys to try out and play around with. So as we said, we have two different types of challenges here. We have this Rockstar Distance Challenge and the RaceJoy Born to Run Challenge. So they're both challenge events, but this one's more open-ended. This one's got more of a set fixed distance to it. So before I dive into these settings here, I did want to go over how you just create a challenge in the first place if you were just setting up a race for the first time. Very quick, but I do want to go over it. If you were to be setting up a race for the first time, you'd enter in your race information here. You'd add an event. And when you put in the information here, you can just type in virtual race challenge as the type. And there's this little checkbox to say, this is a virtual event challenge. And this sets up a lot of defaults for your challenge settings. It will now change this start and end time to accept submissions starting and accept submissions until. So it's now creating this period of submissions over which participants will be able to submit their activity data. So it's very important that if you do want to make a challenge, just check this box, get it started. It sets things up and some defaults for you automatically that will give you a head start. You don't have to set up all those things manually. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I do want to show you that it's pretty simple to get started with setting up a challenge. And it's even easier if you check that box to say that it's a challenge right when you create the race, because then it sets up a lot of this for you. You don't have to enter in these activity submission dates and so on. So there's a few things I want to walk through with you all. When you have a virtual race, you can find under Race Day Tools, Race or Virtual Challenge Settings. Under Configure Virtual Results, you'll see all the information around your virtual event settings for results specifically. So let's take a look at the Rockstar Distance Challenge. The first thing you'll look at is the virtual result settings. So there's a whole bunch of things. These are all filled in for you automatically if you check that box. This is set up for you automatically if you check that box. So let's not even worry about it. It'll automatically toggle this. This is a challenge, and it'll automatically enable all these activity fields. So these are really important if you didn't check that box to begin with. You'll want to make sure that you just check times, distance, and elevation gain. I think it's best to just include everything, let people submit it if they want to, especially for RaceJoy. They have the ability to record that elevation data in a really slick way, so you might as well just include it. It'll get pushed up automatically when they complete their activities in RaceJoy. Now, I leave this tally type as distance and miles. because I'm doing a simple type of, cumulative distance event. We do have options to do all sorts of different crazy things in the Run Sign Up Challenge setup. For RaceJoy implementation, leave it in distance in miles. That's your best option. We do have like min and max time allowed. This is for all activities. So if you're doing a really long challenge, like over the course of months, you may want to bump this maximum allowed time to like 999 or something. So this is where we start to talk about how I want my results to be sorted. So this is very important for challenges. And this is the big thing you want to think about before you start accepting activities. So for this event, this again is our Rockstar Distance Challenge. So what we want to do is a very simple greatest distance or tally with Timebreaker. So that means that the person at the top of the list is always going to be the person with the most amount of mileage. Now I have all these other options like, lowest time, highest time. Like I said, highest time is another good option for these type of cumulative challenges. Also, greatest elevation gain is a good one. Now we have these new options called optional custom pre-sort and an optional tiebreaker. So this is adding multiple layers of sorting capability to our existing system of just doing it by greatest time or lowest time or whatever you want. So I'm going to talk about that on the next one. But for now, this is basically all good to go because I just want to show the person who's got the most amount of mileage at the top. So this looks perfect. So let's moving on. Let's go to activity types. So I want to be super clear on this. It's very important that you do set up an activity type for RaceJoy. The reason is the way that the implementation works is it's looking to see what type of activity are you doing right now. You should set up at least one always for RaceJoy. So if it's a run challenge, just set up a run. Now the run sign up virtual challenge setup doesn't require you to do this. You can just have no activity types and participants will just put in miles or just like steps or whatever you want. But for RaceJoy, you have to set up an activity type, at least one. You can do multiples, you don't have to do multiples, but you have to do at least one. So I, in this one, set up a run option, a walk option, and a ride option. And there's a few different things you can enable here. So I would probably say that time is required, elevation gains optional. They don't have to put it in, but these are just the settings around what type of data they should put in. So it's important that they are at least optional or required for RaceJoy. There's a few other different settings here. You can have a cap on like they can't do more than 10,000 miles or something. These are nice settings that show summary fields in the results. So it can show the total amount of miles that this person ran and the total amount of miles this person walked and the total amount of miles this person rode. So those just add in more data to the results if you want to show that. If you prefer your results to be more simple, you can just take that off. So those are the main settings for activity types. Again, just make sure you have at least one if you're setting up a RaceJoy challenge. So let's move on to goals. So goals are a pretty cool feature in Run Sign Up Virtual. So an overall goal will basically allow you to designate a number that you're trying to work towards. So this distance challenge, like I said, we're not sorting on the greatest distance, but maybe you want to have some goals along the way. So we have two types of goals. You can either let participants define their own or set up some defined ones on your end. Everybody should do 200 miles or people can add their own. So this like shows a progress bar on the results. You've probably seen that if you've looked at Run Sign Up results with Virtual Challenge. There's like a nice little goal meter which shows how much out of 200 you've done. So like James had said, there's also this concept of milestones in Virtual Challenge. So milestones are like along the way, you can unlock these milestones and you can have all sorts of data along with it, like a badge. You can configure additional display settings, which will show things like a description. You could do an image. You can send an email notification when this person unlocks a milestone on Run Sign Up. So it'll send them a nice little message with a preview of the badge they earned, and it will let you basically just give them that extra nudge to keep on going. So it's really, really cool. So James went in and actually added a bunch of these fixed distance completed milestones. So there's one at 10 mile, 50 mile, 100 mile, 250. He also did one that's like, okay, you just did 25 days of activity. So that's another nice option that we have in this milestone type setup. So these are all just kind of, you can enable all sorts of different things, and it just keeps people engaged as they are doing their events. So these milestones that we have set up are overall milestones. They're a part of this overall section here. You also have the capability to do it on the activity type level. So if you want to have a specific one that's like, you ran 10 times or you did 17 walks or whatever you want, you can do all this either on the overall level or on the activity type level. And it'll look a little bit different based on that. So that's what we did for the Rockstar Distance Challenge. Now let's move on to the Born to Run Challenge. Now remember, the Born to Run Challenge was, I want to run like from the distance from Atlantic City to Asbury Park, New Jersey. And so what I did for this one was a little bit unique. And this is what I recommend for any events that are doing a fixed distance challenge. So James showed you this. He actually added in a map here that will show you a course. And what this is not anything to do with where people ran on RaceJoy. What it does is it basically transforms this little bar into a progress bar. So it shows me like, okay, I did 50 or I did like 10 miles, and it'll show my pin over here, even though I didn't run in New Jersey, obviously. It's just showing me as if I were running in New Jersey along that path, accumulating my distance over it. So I know it's 78.2 miles between the two cities. So, and I know my map that I created is 78.2 miles. So it'll just show their progress along it, which is really, really cool. People love to see that kind of thing. So like I was saying, for fixed distance challenges, what we recommend is setting up a milestone for the end. So I know at 78.2 miles, that's my like end goal. That's what I want people to be sorted on when they like hit Atlantic City or whatever. So in this one, I think we ended up with a backwards map here. It's actually going from Atlantic City to Asbury Park, but so I actually had this backwards. But the thing that you can do with milestones is you can upload a custom badge. So like I uploaded the album art for Atlantic City, and when a participant completes the 78.2 miles over the course of a month or whatever, they'll have this nice little badge that they can share. So that's really cool. And I have a few other ones in here for different towns with different distances. And so when you have this milestone set up, what you're now able to do is go back into your virtual settings and say, I want to sort using this optional pre-sort method, the earliest milestone completion date, and then you get to select which milestone I want to sort on. So you may have a bunch of milestones, but I want to say the first person to hit Atlantic City, that's the one that should be used for sorting purposes. And then the lowest time after that. So this is how I recommend setting up a fixed distance challenge. So it's really important to make sure that this is all set up before results are being collected. And the reason for that is that this is all based on the date that a person unlocks a milestone. So if half of your participants already completed the total distance and they're not going to log anymore, and then you enable this, it's going to be all screwy because it doesn't go back in time and figure out when they would have unlocked it. It's only future facing. So you have to make sure you get the setup done before the first person hits that milestone distance. So that's really important to get right. So those are the main settings for the two types of challenges, the open-ended and the fixed distance type. So I think with that, I can pass it back to James did you have some more to go through on the RaceJoy setup side?
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay, share my screen. Okay, great. Is it showing yet? Okay, great. So the setup is very complex at times, but yet simple. So we try to make things simple but powerful is the right word, simple but powerful. So RunSignup's done a lot of work to create all these different options for doing challenge events and giving you lots of different ways to do it. And Matt's giving you a good kind of first primer on that. There's a lot of good blogs out there to read to try to get into the more depth settings on that. So really the main point here though is that it's all about that setting. It's all about setting up those activities and everything. RaceJoy is going to be reaching out, and that's our integration to look at that. And so from a setup perspective from RaceJoy, it's literally as simple as just turning on this option. And so if I come over here and I look at an event here, let's go to this event, and let's say I had, kind of got things enabled, and I set up this challenge that I want to go, and I'm ready to go. It's literally that. It's literally just turning it on, deciding if you are an international event. Are you going to be doing things internationally based on kilometers or miles? Do you want the typical starting milestone to be every 1 mile or every 5 miles for more of a cycle-based, challenge? That's really the configuration that you need to worry about, is just setting up those two kind of basic parameters. At that point, everything is going to be looking at RunSignup, but I did want to just highlight for a second a very important wrinkle to this, and that is, as all of our certified partners know, pace is very important in terms of how we present pace out, and everything is kind of up to you to control, how you want those pace alerts to go. That is true for any type of course that is Race Anywhere, standard, relay course. When it comes to challenge, that's the only one time when the pace is not driven by what you're doing here in terms of setting this up here. It's all going to be based upon those activities that Avery was covering. So really, that's where it's very important to make sure that you set up those different types of activities. Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. And the different activities are important. So these are all the different standard activities that can be done: run, ride, even swim. People can put it in a buoy and carry it with them on the GPS tracker as they swim long distance, walk, ski events, any kind of paddleboard, rowing event. Again, all these are distance-based moving events, and we can have a tracking device during those events. So it's important to set up those activity types. The pace will be determined based upon the activity type. So you don't need to worry about setting up pace on RaceJoy in this one example when you set up the course processing for challenge. So it's as simple as that. Just get your challenge processing set up, make sure that everything's set up on the virtual side the way you want it, and then those activities will be presented to the user. The user will be using the phone to complete the activities. And so now you've given them another way to automatically submit activity data using a branded, engaged app that's tied to your event, where you're sending push notifications out based on your event, and all the other things that Shelley covered in terms of that engagement can kind of be tied in. And we think that overall, participants may choose to use their Strava app still, of course, but they might use the RaceJoy in addition to that because they like the automatic submission and that they don't have to go manually upload that data. And that's the key thing. You're giving them a tool that automatically submits the data for them. So at that, that's as simple as that for setting it up, and I'll hand it back to Shelley to close out.
I wanted to thank everybody. I guess we could share our cameras again for joining us. And we've had a lot of good questions, but we want to be cognizant of the hour. I did want to communicate that Matt will be providing a good deep dive into the setup of challenge events, because we've had a lot of new features and things have changed. So there'll be another webinar to dive deep into that setup, but we wanted to talk about the most important things you need to know about in regards to RaceJoy. But as James said, it's so easy. When you get to RaceJoy, it's just that processing type. That's the only thing that you need to really worry about for the RaceJoy setup. But you need to make sure it's correct on the RunSignup challenge platform setup. Just like with the virtual, you need to make sure the virtual results are set up correctly. It's the same thing. So just getting that back end set up correctly, and then it's just that simple toggle. So, but we wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer your questions, and we're definitely here to support you. So, thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone.